Welcome back to Autoimmune Adventures, where we explore the tools, mindsets, and strategies that help us live boldly, even in the midst of chronic illness. We're honored to welcome Dr. Will Tuttle, author of The World Peace Way, a book that introduces 6 powerful tenets designed to help individuals create peace within themselves and extend that peace into their communities. Today, we're diving into those 6 tenets, what they mean, and how we can begin applying them in practical ways. Today's conversation centers on something we talk about often, the importance of peace, not just peace in the world, but peace within ourselves, in our relationships, and in the way that we move through our daily lives. When you're living with chronic illness or autoimmune disease, peace can sometimes feel out of reach. But what if peace wasn't something distant? What if it was something you could intentionally build into your life? Dr. Tuttle, welcome to Autoimmune Adventures. We're so happy you're here, Will. We're excited.
Right. Thank you so much, Stacy. And thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Becky and Alicia. It's great to be here. Thanks.
So, your newest book introduces 6 foundational tenets designed to help individuals create peace within themselves and the world around them. What
Right.
inspired you to write this book at this stage in your journey?
You know, the main reason I think I wrote this is that my other books, the 2 other big books, The World Peace Diet and Food for Freedom, are books about why it's important for us to question the underlying narratives in our society about food and about medicine and pharmaceuticals, and really just in general about role models and the whole foundation of our society. And it seemed like it would be a good idea to write a book that would talk about how we can actually live our lives in alignment with this understanding, which really I think is bringing us back to ancient wisdom. Now, a lot of that ancient wisdom is in our society, but it's been kind of covered over. But these 6 foundational tenets that you mentioned in the World Peace Way, it's what I've discovered over the last maybe 50 years of studying and researching and trying things out to thrive and celebrate our lives on this beautiful planet. So the foundation is in these other books. The philosophical foundation is in the World Peace Diet and Food for Freedom. But the World Peace Way talks about the 6 keys to health and harmony for ourselves and for everyone, because we're all interconnected. So that was really the idea, was to kind of bring in something practical for people, because I see so many people are suffering unnecessarily, physically, psychologically. Our whole society is suffering a lot. And I think that suffering is really not necessary when we understand universal principles that bring harmony and peace and health and awareness and freedom and joy and abundance to us and to everyone around us. Yeah.
Well, we love this. We love your tenants because they align so closely with, we have what we call our big 6. So
Oh.
when I saw, oh my goodness, he's got 6 tenants too, and 4 of them are the same as yours. And so we were like, this is awesome. But I love your why, and I love that you've given a how, because I think that's where some people don't know what the next step would be, and you've kind of given a how. So many people wait when they hear the phrase world peace, they think more about global conflict and politics. But in your work, you bring the idea down to the level of everyday living, which I love. How do you define peace in the context of daily life?
In the context of daily life, it's basically inner peace primarily, because that's the foundation for peace in the relations in the family, relations in the community, relations at the local governmental level, relations at the national and international levels, and maybe beyond. I don't know. But basically, it really comes back to getting in alignment with our inner wisdom. And that brings peace. And that's hard to do because we're basically born into a culture where we're taught to sort of feel afraid of nature and each other and try to manipulate and use each other to get what we want and keep away what we don't want. So we're all kind of competing for a limited amount of goods and money and affection and attention and whatever it is that we want. And so this underlying sense of separateness, that's really it. Underlying sense of separateness creates a sense of unease that may be very subtle, but it may be kind of gross, but it's always there. And so it's really the inner work of questioning that and reconnecting with our basic unity with the source of all life, which runs through all of us, which connects all of us, that we can then basically somewhat, I would say, relax into an awareness of the oneness that is all of us, which brings a sense of inner peace. And then it's only from that basis, I think, that we can ever have peace at the bigger levels. And then the other thing that goes with that is that even though there's not peace at the bigger levels, we can still be at peace. I think that's possible. It's like what's outside of me, I can't maybe change it, but I can change how I respond to it. I have control over how I respond to what seems to be outside of me, even though I may not seem to be able to control what other people do. I don't think I should even, in many ways, try to control other people too much, because everybody has what they're going to do. But if my happiness and my peace is dependent on what other people do, then basically I'm a prisoner of my own reactions. So the idea is we do have a lot of power in a positive way over our own responses to situations, and that's where we can respond with a sense of loving kindness and understanding and inner peace, even when we're being maybe harmed in some way, or being ridiculed, or who knows what it is, or we see the suffering in the world. All these things, we can send our compassion, but we still, I think, if we're deeply rooted in the sense of unity, we still have an underlying sense of joy and peace, even in the appearances. And in many ways, these are appearances. So that's a critical point to make. I guess the main point, I'll just say briefly, is that we live in what most people feel is a material world, and that idea that we're just matter, we were just born and we'll die, we're objects limited in time and space, that just creates unease. And therefore we have to get what we want and keep away what we don't want, and we're in this conflict. But when we realize we're consciousness that was never born and will never die, and others are also that, other human beings and animals and all living beings, that changes everything. But that's not really what we're taught in our society, in school, and in the media, the basic relationships that we're usually taught. We're taught something else. So I think it's really questioning materialism, coming back to spirituality and consciousness.
I love that. I love also like how you were saying that innate sense of like inner unity, which I think is that idea that we all are connected. I think that's huge, and I think that's so important in today's world where it seems like everything is so divisive, like you said, in the world in general, but that peace can start with you. So kind of going into that with the how, like we talked about, your 6 tenets. And like Alicia mentioned, we have six pillars, our big six that we call them. And we were excited because a lot of them align. I was thinking, like when you were talking about not letting others' behavior or your outside situations make you like bring you down essentially. One of ours is growth mindset, and the idea that you can always, even in a really tough spot, you can improve, you can find something, it's not all dark. There's something good there always.
Right.
But we would love for you, if you don't mind, to share those 6 tenets from your book with our listeners so that they could learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So the 6 tenets are, well, the first one is sort of the one that takes the longest to explain, but I'll go quickly. The first one is diet, using the old word dieta, which the word diet comes from in Greek, which means way of life. So it's our way of life. So it's what we're eating and how we're eating it. So I'm basically recommending an organic, whole, plant-based way of eating and living, and also without toxins, minimizing toxins, minimizing herbicide, pesticide, fungicide residues, artificial flavors and colors, all that stuff. And that to me is a fantastic foundation, very important. I've been doing that for 46 years, I guess. And then also beverages, what we're drinking. A lot of people are drinking all kinds of bad things. Water, purifying. You have good filters and so forth. I talk about all those things. How we're cooking the food, how we're preparing the food, how often we're eating, the way we're eating, all these things, how we're consuming, basically, how we're breathing. A lot of people in our society, most of us, really don't know how to breathe properly. We're not never taught how to eat properly, drink properly, breathe properly. And the basic things. Most people are breathing very rapid, shallow breaths, which kind of makes our mind somewhat anxious. So just slow down our breathing, really drink plenty of water, get good rest, of course. But basically, what we're putting on our skin is like we might as well eat it. It goes right into our body. So really be conscious of what we're consuming in all these different ways. The cleaning products that we're using. There's so many chemicals. There's literally thousands and thousands of toxic chemicals that have been invented in laboratories that were never exposed to ever, and they're harmful, and there's no protection. That's the thing to understand. The word fragrance, for example, in a product can be a placeholder for any number. It could be 100 known carcinogens could be in there. So we do not know. So most people think, well, that couldn't be true, but it is true. So it's very important to read ingredients in food, beverages, try to have good, clean air, everything we're putting on our body. And then also what we're taking in through the media. Very important. There's junk food. There's also junk media. There's a lot of fear and divisiveness and so forth being, just deluged. We're being deluged in all of that. And that all kind of works against our being healthy because our mind and body are not separate. So understanding all those things, that's the foundation, number one. That's the first pillar, is whatever we're consuming. Try to really be conscious and mindful of our food, water, air, personal care products, media, what we're reading, what we're taking in. And that if we do that, that's a great foundation. Number two is having a regular spiritual practice of some kind. We regularly bring our mind into the present moment. It can be somewhat active if we love taking walks in nature and we get into somewhat of a meditative state, or certain crafts and things. But I think also having a regular practice where we sit quietly and just let our mind present, be open and relaxed. And it's the kind of a mind that we're taught not to have. It's nothing exotic. It's not like only people from some other culture can do this. Anyone can practice a meditative or prayerful way of being, where we're listening internally and being open and allowing our mind to leave the prison of being dominated by our egoic thinking, which really, it kind of takes over the sense of me and my life and what I'm going to do and what I should have done and what I wish they would have done. And if they would have done that, I would have done this. This whole thing, just kind of develop the witness capacity to kind of watch all of that. So we're not grabbed by it. We're just being aware. So that's number two, a regular inner practice. Number three is healthy relationships, cultivating healthy relationships. A lot of people do everything right. They have maybe a spiritual practice and they eat well, but they're still angry at someone in the past, or they still have unresolved issues and so forth. So it's really important, I think, to consciously do the best we can in our relationships with the people close to us, in our relationships with everyone, even the store clerks and people we just briefly, to be kind and loving. Just practice kindness, just kindness. Basic, really trying to put ourselves in the other person's position, less arguing and fighting, more listening. The more we do that, we realize that we can take responsibility for the quality, not only of our food and our water, but also of our relationships. We can really build harmonious, loving relationships by being the one who is loving, not expecting the other person, they have to be nice before I'll be nice. Forget all that. Be the one who is kind and loving and understanding, and without any expectation the other person's going to do that. And this is a fantastic liberation. Just be the one who's going to do my best all the time, to be understanding and kind and loving. And I think this is an important foundation. That's number three. Number four is basically movement and exercise. And again, we live in a society more and more where we're not doing much moving and exercising. We're kind of we have all these labor-saving devices. We have our technology, which kind of saves us from anything we have to do. So we like to get out every afternoon and work in the garden, and then of course not only that, but having regular practices. Find things that you like to do. My wife does yoga every day. I do yoga also, and we also I do Tai Chi and Qigong as well, and do some running and biking and swimming in the lake and things like that. So it's good to have exercise. I also talk in the book about movement, just how we hold our bodies, how we're in many ways in our society taught to be above and separate from the earth. I think really remembering old, more ancient ways of being, squatting, getting closer to the earth. I'm sitting right now on the floor. We don't have no furniture in our house. We have cushions. I just think it's nicer to be on the floor, but just in general, to just develop flexibility and strength and balance, and kind of do something every day to keep that happening. So that's number 4. Number 5 is nature. Nature, I think, is the greatest ally we have to be healthy. The natural world is our true home. And we live in a society increasingly, I think every year we get more and more disconnected from nature and more into this artificial human world where the temperatures and the colors and the sounds and the lights and everything are more and more dominated by technology. And we're sort of disconnected from the natural world. Computers and phones take it to another level. And I think, other things like AI they're talking about, all these things tend to make us feel like we humans are something totally different than the natural world. And so just getting into the forests or into wherever you are, into the water and into the prairies, and just connecting with nature, seeing the birds and flowers and bushes and trees and the sky and the sun and the moon and the wind and the rain, and just in general, finding a way to connect to nature really is wonderfully helpful. Cold water is something I discovered a long time ago. Getting into cold water is something very helpful, I think. And then the last one has to do with creativity and purpose. And it's really about raising our vibratory level so that we're in alignment with a spiritual purpose. I think we all have our own unique spiritual purpose for this lifetime. And to the degree that I'm actively engaged in that, I think there's an underlying sense of joy, a healthy sense of being on a mission in a sense. And I think when we're doing that, all of the cells of our physical being are doing the best they can to serve us, right? Because we're not just this physical object trying to make money. If I reduce my purpose to that level, I think at a deeper level, it's like, what's the purpose? Why? Why do I need this money? I mean, why do I need whatever it is? But when we have a calling, and I think it really has to be a calling from our spirit, from our soul, to improve our world and to improve our own consciousness, and we're working toward that in a meaningful way, an authentic way, then I think every cell and system in our physical body is activated, and it's like, yeah, let's work on this. So these are the things I think. The underlying idea is we can consciously take responsibility for the quality of our consciousness and the quality of our life, and it doesn't depend on other people. And it's better not, I think, to rely too much on outside authorities, and to reconnect with the inner authority, the inner guidance system that we have, can help us connect with the unique life that we're here to live. And so I bring a lot of other things in, but those are the basic 6. It's diet, meditation, or inner practice, healthy relationships, movement and exercise, nature, and creativity and purpose. Being creative, finding ways that we're able to fulfill our own unique creative purpose. And I think when we engage in these authentically, then we'll be healthy. We'll be basically tending toward being healthy. And being healthy, I should say, it's a great gift we give, not just to ourselves and those close to us, but really to everyone. It's uplifts everyone, and it's a great gift to the world.
These are empowering tenets. Every single one of them is empowering. We have control over so much of these things. And I think people like to, I don't know, maybe victimize themselves and, I'm just a victim of circumstance, whatever it may be. But we know better. This is taking ownership of your life, your body, your brain, your spirit, your experience on earth. and making it yours. It's yours. And we were put here with purpose, with reason. I love that. I love all of that. That was fantastic.
When we engage in that, I think we can connect with this inner joy that deep down inside all of us. I think there's this bubbling spring of joy. That's our true nature. Nothing from the outer world can really make me happy. Ultimately, it's got to be. But the beautiful thing is, it's already here. The joy is actually ever present. We work pretty hard keeping it down by wishing, things were other than they are. And so when we do this inner work and we start to feel the joy because we're living our life, we realize that we are an infinite, eternal spiritual being. We can get a glimpse of that. And I think that's really helpful.
When you were talking about people are suffering physically and psychologically. And that's one thing we talk about a lot on this podcast is when you live a chronic illness, a lot of the time you're going to be suffering physically. And despite your best efforts, you're going to be suffering physically. And it's not always easy when you're in physical pain to get your head in a good place. But I think that those 6 tenets and our big 6, that's how we get there.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said.
I think there's a lot to be said about learning your nervous system and your mental power that exists in finding that peace within yourself, because it's always there. It's always there. And sometimes we disassociate from that peace because the people around us have this expectation of how we should be. But the truth of the matter is, our inner peace comes from that place where we find our mission, where we find our joy. And sometimes that doesn't fit the little cookie cutter that other people want us to fit into. So I love that so much, that it's like a self-guided practice to find yourself. And that's really beautiful. I love that. Thank you. All right. So for someone who has just heard these 6 tenets for the first time, which is going to be a large portion of our audience, where would you recommend that they begin so that they have some kind of starting point that feels a little bit more accessible, so it's not so overwhelming?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's best if they hear the 6 tenets, they read the book. This is the little book here, World Peace Way. It's not very long, and get a view of those. I think everyone can get a feeling for, in all 6 of those, something they can do, move in that direction. Like with diet, there's so many ways we can purify or improve or upgrade our consuming. And we can always be more mindful, I think, about eating food that's healthy and learning more about that. And so I have, and in the back of the book, there's lots of resources of places where people can get these things. And same with water and air and personal care products and all those things. And I think really um, setting a time where we're going to meditate on a regular basis every day is very helpful. I really recommend people do that. I mean, I was drawn into it when I was just in college still. I started reading about people that had awakened spiritually. And it led me to understand that Jesus, in many ways, is this beautiful awakened teacher. But there's others also, great sages and saints and mystics, poets and seers, and that they didn't just happen. It didn't just happen by accident. I mean, they worked. They took time. They went apart. It's somewhat of it's somewhat of a struggle, I guess. One has to work with one's tendencies, but to take time every day to just maybe start out with a 20-minute or 15-minute or 10-minute of just repeating love, compassion, joy, and peace. That's an ancient practice. This radiate love, compassion, joy, and peace to my every cell in my body and out into the world. Just doing that for 10 minutes a day in the morning can really set a wonderful foundation. So then when I'm driving my car and someone cuts me off, instead of just getting upset and angry, I can say, well, send them some love, compassion, joy, and peace. We can become a practitioner. I think that's the main thing, is that we can practice. That's the good news. I remember when I was a little kid and I I was the oldest child, and my father played the piano, and I was watching him. I was only about 2 years old, and but I said, I want to play the piano. And he said, yeah, you can. You just have to practice. And as I got older, I started practicing it. And then at a certain point, I started having to write it down on the chart every day in the kitchen that I did my 30 minutes or whatever it was. But that practice, the regular daily practice, creates a wonderful foundation. So Madeline and I, my wife Madeline and I, have decided we'll change the first letter of the word discipline from a D to a BL. So it's discipline. Because really, discipline seems like a bad thing. Like every day I eat clean, healthy food. Every day I practice breathing. Every day I send out love. People say, wow, you're so disciplined. And it's like, every day I play the piano. I mean, it's so much joy. It just creates the foundation of joy. If my mind is just running here and running there, I might think, wow, I have a free mind. No, my mind has got me completely enslaved. It's when we can direct our attention where we would like it to go, and we're not being pushed around. Our mind can be our greatest friend, and it can be our greatest enemy. And if it's uncontrolled, it'll just wreak havoc on us and everybody around us. So it's practicing, and it's like we have the metaphor that came to me. I think it's in the book, of a beautiful piano. Yeah, it's like all of us are given this wonderful, like a fantastic Steinway grand piano, or whatever it is, and yet we're not really taught. And that's our mind. That's our mind. But we're not really taught how to practice and how to make beautiful music with our mind. We're taught, the people around us, our parents and friends and neighbors, they're like banging on the keys and pouring Coca-Cola into the action.
And we're playing chopsticks.
And so we think that's what you do with your mind, with your instrument. You just kind of, yell and scream or get upset, or, that's what we're taught. So the whole idea is to realize we have this mind, this beautiful instrument, and we can make beautiful music, like with a beautiful piano. So it's just this idea of practicing. So they can practice mindful consuming, practice mindful meditation, practice mindful being kind and loving in relationships, and doing some movement. That's really helpful. A lot of times I think people don't realize that a lot of our mental problems are we're not getting enough movement. The body really it does thrive on moving, and we can really feel better after we do some kind of meaningful exercise. It can be very helpful. I think energy gets blocked in a lot of cases. So, and learning Tai Chi and yoga, and learning Qigong, and being able to move energy, all these things, they're ancient wisdom traditions that people have used for thousands of years. And I've seen it. I was a Zen Buddhist monk in Korea. I mean, I've worked a lot with energy. I've seen these great masters. They can really do amazing things. And there's a lot, and there's healing energy that moves through us. It can help other people, and there's so much more to us than we realize. And then, of course, connecting with nature every day in a way that's meaningful. Take off our shoes now and then, and find something creative, a creative outlet, writing in a journal, or doing a craft, or music, or art, painting, or poetry, or so many different ways we can just find creative outlets. I think it's the most important thing is that each person do this authentically for them, and they feel gets them into a more healthy way of living, and entering each of these six keys in a way that they feel is meaningful for them.
I feel like you said something that really stuck with me about speaking compassion into every cell in your body. And that's just stuck in my brain. And I'm thinking, that is hard to do for me. That's hard to do, I think, for a lot of us that live with chronic illness. Things that affect our body, our muscles, our musculoskeletal system, where we are feeling it physically. And sometimes I notice, for me, I will at times get resentful or bitter, or just angry, or just sad that my body wasn't what it used to be, or whatever. And those feelings are, while they are entirely valid, they're not helping anything. If I chose instead to be speaking compassion to my brain and my body, I can see how that would just be so much more helpful, you know? So for those of our listeners a lot of our listeners are suffering physically, and mentally too. I mean, physical, when you're not in physical health that is good, your mental health often suffers right alongside of it.
Right.
So how can those 6 tenets help somebody living with chronic illness specifically to cultivate peace within themselves during like a difficult season of health, maybe a flare up or a new diagnosis or something like that?
Right. Yeah, I think the idea of sending compassion, also sending love into the parts of our body that are not working or are sending signals of pain to our mind, that we hear, that we hear it. And I think the whole idea really is to understand, and this is possible, that everything is temporary. So sometimes we forget that. We feel like it's going to go on forever, but human life is temporary, and everything can I think help us to go to a higher level. To me, the pain in the body, this I wrote about this in the book. One day I was on a long retreat by myself, and I got a terrible pain in my back, and it was really hurting. Um, and so I started meditating on it, and it's like someone spoke in my ear and said, "A pain in the body is a pain in the mind," and I was trying to figure out what that meant, and so I just started writing in my journal, kind of automatic writing, just letting it come through. And it was for me, it was a very beautiful experience of learning that I still had not addressed this inner little boy who was hurting, and who didn't like to reach out to the world. And so I started really working, loving, loving that part that I had sort of forgotten about, like a long time ago. But I could feel it. It was something unresolved. And then I had the realization that little boy, that being that was really sort of afraid of reaching out to the world, was no longer needed to have power over me, over the being I am now. I could love him and understand, sense of understanding, like you said, compassion, that earlier uh, Will, myself, Will Tuttle, and that the pain went away. And the physical pain did go away. It felt like a miraculous healing. But and it may or may not do that. But there's I've studied many systems of spiritual healing, and one of them I spent quite a bit of time on, actually, is called Christian Science, and which is basically the idea that what we are is spirit, what we are is consciousness, and the physical body is somewhat of an illusion. I mean, we identify with it, but what we are is eternal and spiritual. Sort of, and there's many other Buddhist traditions of spiritual healing that focus on this in the same way. And so the idea is that these things seem real to us. The pain seems real. I mean, it seems real. There's no question about it. And we can't, and it's not good to deny the reality, but it's also good to understand that that's not all there is. And we can raise our consciousness to a higher level where the pain is not there, or where the pain is in another context. And there's different ways of doing that. Like I remember when I was meditating in Korea as a Zen Buddhist monk, you sit for 50 minutes and then you walk for 10 minutes, but you're really not allowed to move in between. So there would be times when, like, my knees, because you're sitting on the floor, my knees would be screaming, it hurts so much. But I'm just sitting, and it's like one develops the capacity to sort of watch pain, right? Just become aware of it, but not have it yet. It's make me feel, and then and then I think it's that witness consciousness. We can become aware of it, but we're not it itself. And we are the consciousness that is infinite and eternal, within which this is all arising. The more we can kind of become the space within which all of this is arising, the less it gets its fishhooks in us, and pulls us into more fear and more contraction, and the contraction makes the pain worse, and it's like a downward spiral. So the whole idea is there's a lesson, and so there's two levels. One is we can watch it, and it can um, still be there, but it's not getting us so much. The other is there may be a message in it that's for a deeper healing. It's like an adventure. Like what is this? What is the hidden gift here? And we'll come back on the other side as a more whole, complete being. Actually, there's also one other thing. I'll just tell a brief story. Maybe you've heard of the great Tibetan yogi Milarepa. And at one point, he was a great meditator, and he could meditator back like 1,000 years ago. But at one point, he got an illness, and um, and so these other rival sort of yogis came, and he said he had an illness, and they said, "Oh, really? Well, you don't look like it's too bad." He said, "Yeah, my body is in terrible pain right now." And they said, "Well, it doesn't look like you're in terrible pain." He said, "No, but it really is." And so then one of the yogis says, "Well, if it's so bad, transfer it over to that tree over there." And so Miller said, "Okay." So then he transferred his pain and his body over to a tree, and the tree started shaking, and the bark flew off, and then he took it back onto himself. And the yogi said, "Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe you just did a magic trick." And Miller said, "Well," he said, "if you want, I can send the pain that I'm experiencing. I can send it over to you." And the guy said, "All right, go ahead." And so he sent it over to the guy. And the guy started screaming, and then Miller took it back again, and he said, "Yeah, the pain is there, but it doesn't affect what I am." He was at that state. But the teaching in this is in sort of an ancient text that millions of people, thousands of people in Tibet know very well. But the underlying teaching, I think, is a very healthy teaching. The idea is that when you raise your consciousness to a certain level, you're free, really, from all of this stuff. And we're not there yet. That's okay, but it gives us a goal, right? And I think we can get to the level where we're living a life of just in greater harmony, and it's all inner work. And anything that's making me frustrated and getting this and that and the other, it's a reminder. It's a help. See it as help as a way to propel myself to deeper understanding, deeper awareness, go through this, we get on the other side. And it's the way, I think the human life, final thing I'll say is, I don't know if I wrote about this, but what has been coming to me lately is that the human life is like a gymnasium, and so we go into a gymnasium, you expect to find some weights that will get you stronger. That's why we go. We go there to get stronger. So if we go to this gymnasium and they don't have any heavy weights, the heaviest weights they have are only 1 or 2 pounds, we're disappointed. It's like, well, nothing here. So that's not interesting. So the gymnasium, really heavy weight, to get like strong challenges, but that's to make us stronger. So we should, instead of saying, "Oh, I don't like this, all these heavy weights," to see it as, well, this is just exactly what I need right now to help get stronger. See it again, switch it to that possibility that I can be the one more and more like Milarepa. I can carry it, and I won't put it on other people. I'll carry it, and I'll get to the point where it doesn't even bother me anymore. I mean, these are big challenges, but people do these. People do these things. It's amazing what people can do, and I think that's very inspiring.
In the chronic illness community, personally, I've seen many, many people who do that, who carry incredible pain that would literally put other people in the hospital, and they carry it on a daily basis with amazing decorum and grace, and you know
Wow.
so
Yeah.
yes, I agree. I think that's definitely something that you can get to. We're looking at the time, and as we're winding down, we wanted to make sure that we got your information about your books and how our listeners can contact you and learn more about what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Becky. Thanks, everyone. And my name is Will Tuttle, so willtuttle.com or worldpeacediet.com, either those websites, or books are on Amazon and all the other booksellers and so forth. And we have On our website, we have more, like videos, and my wife Madeline's cooking videos, and our gardening videos, music and art, and Spotify has all my music, and all those other. We're pretty much on the internet, so happy to stay in touch with people. Our course schedule's up there, and so forth.
I just wanted to thank you so much for reminding us that we are the power in our own lives. There's some real beauty in knowing that we are not defined by the challenges that we have, the pain that we experience, the sorrows that may come through our lives, that we are defined by who we innately are at our core. And that if we allow ourselves to find that there is immense amount of joy that comes from that. So thank you for coming today and sharing this with us.
Thank you. Beautifully said. Thank you.
Yeah, it resonated a lot, and I think our listeners are going to love everything you had to say. I know I did. So, Dr. Tuttle, thank you for joining us today and helping us recognize that peace is something that we have access to and we can cultivate right here, right now, in our thoughts and our choices and our relationships. And to our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what peace looks like in your own life and how you might develop that. Maybe it starts with a small shift in perspective, or a moment of self-compassion, or simply choosing kindness in a difficult moment. If you are interested in learning more about today's topic, be sure to check out The World Peace Way by Dr. Will Tuttle and his other books that he has mentioned on his websites. It's a powerful guide for anyone looking to live with more intention and compassion and clarity. As always, thank you for joining us on Autoimmune Adventures. Remember, you are worthy of joy. Disease does not define your life, you do.